another chapter in this amazing rivalry. I'm going to talk about that history with some fans who are already here.
Hell, look at this now.
I thought I smelled some aged cheese. Have a seat. Join us. You've got to be some kind of a masochist to come back here, my friend.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Cut the Cheese, Poke the Bear. I'm UrzaMaster. With me as always, Lord Uther, resident Packer fan, resident Bears fan, and let's just say as fans of both our franchises, I think we might have a lot to talk about after these last couple of weeks. For better and for worse, mostly worse, but maybe for better. Lord Uther, let's start with your Bears. What's going on in Tough Guy Town?
Tough Guy Town? That's pretty funny. Well, our tough guys aren't so tough with Fields going out. And, you know, it's kind of funny because you've got this thing now with the proverbial backup coming in, and everyone here is just hoping, you know, and there are even people saying before it, to sit Fields and bring in Bagnet. I think I said his name right. I even have a tough time saying his name. But it's that typical, you know, the guy on the bench can do it, bring him in. Even my dogs are barking about it because they're so upset about it. And so he came in, you know, I think he threw for 83 yards. And Fields is going to be out for a couple weeks. And everyone is thinking, like, this is the right move to make. Just let the guy play the rest of the season. There's been some of that talk. You know, there's some of that talk of what do you do now with Fields? Do you know, are they going to, you know, extend him next year beyond that? You know, are they going to try and draft somebody? What's the plan? And now him being injured has thrown a massive wrench in those plans, but he wasn't even playing that well before he got hurt. But again, is it his fault? Is it the coaching staff's fault? Right now, Eberflus has the worst coaching record in Bears history, and that takes something to beat Mark Trestman's record. So
That's saying something.
It is. And then today they bring in this Phil Snow guy as a defensive analyst, and Eberflus is going to keep calling all the defensive plays. It's just a mess. And again, I think Bears fans are at the point of burn it and just start all over again. And we, you know, and we've had this. I didn't think that was going to happen this year. I thought,
No.
I thought at worst middle of the pack, and now we're going to probably have the first and second draft choice because Carolina's awful too. I can just keep rambling, so I'm going to say one more thing because I can. Some Bears fans last week when we beat Washington thought that, oh, we're on the uptick. And
Did they watch the game?
yeah, I know. I had said to a few of my friends, I'm like, it's a flash in the pan. It's Washington. Like, what do you expect? It's Washington. You know what's going to happen. And lo and behold, we stumble and fall on our face once again. So it's a whole pile of just suck down here right now, and it needs a lot of work. We're probably going to lose to Vegas this weekend too, but I'll stop now and turn it over to you.
And Vegas is a better team than I think some people give him credit for. Jimmy Garoppolo's a pretty solid quarterback, and I think with all the problems that Vegas has had, like, people tend to forget that they still have a lot of weapons. They still have Devontae Adams, for crying out loud. And really, at that point, you only need one other, like, even a B-grade receiver, and you've got a really great offense. With even just a serviceable, even a Kirk Cousins-esque quarterback could take that team pretty far. You know, no surprise, lost to the Lions. I was a little surprised we lost to Vegas, but again, we're dealing with a lot of injuries in Green Bay. Jordan Love does not look good, quite frankly. No, he's learning. Again, I treat him as a rookie quarterback. I was not expecting really greatness. And after playing the Bears, I was like, well, you know, you got to take that with a grain of salt. But hey, you know, high hopes, right? And we've done okay, even in the games we've lost. You know, aside from the Lions game, which I feel like we kind of gave away. You know, I feel like they've played pretty darn good football. It's just they played better teams, and you know, we're coming out of a bye week. We're looking at, you know, down the barrel of the Broncos. I have pretty high hopes we're going to beat the Broncos in Mile High, but it is in Mile High. which everybody tends to play better at home, although it's the Broncos, which you never know how they're going to play at home. And it's Russell Wilson, who is playing, frankly, worse than Jordan Love right now. I kind of feel the same way about Jordan Love as I think a lot of Bears fans feel about Justin Fields, in that it's kind of do or die. Jordan Love's in the fifth-year option of his contract, so they have to figure out what to do with him at the end of the season. You've got some good rookie prospects, but I know the Packers are not one to give up when they've invested so much in somebody. I don't think they're not going to at least keep Jordan Love through probably at least preseason next year. They're going to make it some kind of an open competition, even if they do draft a quarterback, which I don't think they're going to necessarily do. Maybe a late rounder, just to fill out the depth chart. But I think we're in it for the long haul with Jordan Love, at least for probably the next 3 years. I would think they're probably going to get some kind of a 3-year deal done at the end of the season. Or before the end of the season, maybe, depending on how things go the next 8 weeks. Justin Fields, I think he's in the same boat, but I think he's going to get the opposite treatment. I think he should get the same treatment, frankly. I think he's a good quarterback who needs a better system. We've talked about that before, whether it's the offensive line, the offensive play calling, the general management of the team, I think, is kind of the problem in Chicago. And hey, it's great for me as a Packers fan because we can beat the hell out of Chicago. It's probably the only team we can beat right now. But it's tough because you also kind of want to have a respectable rival, and it does pain me to see Detroit on top of the division. But if it had to be anybody and not the Packers, I'd almost rather it be Detroit because they've been completely irrelevant forever. And 70 years of being completely irrelevant, I don't necessarily feel bad about that. Other than when they had Barry Sanders for like a minute, were they any good? And I'm sorry, but Barry Sanders proves that a running back can't carry the whole team. Adrian Peterson proved it the second time. They've got a lot of weapons in Detroit, but I think Detroit is as Detroit does. I think the back half of the season is going to be very challenging for them. And I think it's because the Packers and the Bears are late season teams. They typically come on, for better or worse, after the bye week. And I really think that, the Packers have a chance if they can develop some rhythm and get some guys back from injury after this bye week, get Aaron Jones back on the field. I really think there's a strong chance they might win 6 or 7 more games. Possibly. Now, the Bears, I think they're going to be more of that, crapshoot team, to be honest with you. They're going to get scrappy. They're not going to have a whole lot to play for. And that's where you can catch a team. Honestly, I think that's where a lot of teams get their butt whipped by a team they shouldn't get whipped by. I've seen the Packers do it before. We played, was it Jacksonville one year? And they were I think they went 3-13 that year. And we were one of the 3 wins because we went in, we didn't take them seriously. We didn't respect our opponent. And frankly, I think a lot of teams in the latter half of the season are going to treat Chicago and Green Bay as enhancement talent. They're going to think, all right, we don't have to play that hard against these guys. They'll probably give it a good quarter's worth of effort, get up by 2 scores, and pull a Mike McCarthy and rest on the laurels, get a massage the last half of the game. But maybe it's the ever-loving Green Bay optimist in me, but I say let it rock. I think the second half of the season we're going to see a different Packers team.
So here's a question. Do you think Jordan Love has the skill set that the Packers can rely on him and stick with him as he does continue to grow? Because to me, he's still a rookie. Say what you want. I even think his numbers are very comparable to Aaron Rodgers' first year, aren't they?
Yeah, Peyton Manning's first year too.
So do you think he has the skill set to stay in that position for you and not be a career backup?
I think it's too early to tell. I will say that through every game I've seen, 5 games this season, I'm not terribly inspired by his play. He is playing like a rookie, but I would have said the exact same thing about Brett Favre, his first 5 games with the Packers. Definitely said the same thing about Aaron Rodgers, the first 5 games he was a starter. I think there has not been enough time elapsed to know for sure. The back half of the season is going to be very telling. He needs to work on the rocket balls, which I'm okay with because I'm a Favre guy, obviously. He needs to work on accuracy and rhythm with his receivers. And that's just having the reps and the development with the receivers and having a healthy line. The line's been a little iffy. He hasn't had the time he needs. If he gets an extra 2 seconds in the pocket, he can play. The guy can ball. He just needs to develop a little more urgency, which, I mean, you only have so many seconds, like, as a quarterback to begin with. I think if he can get to that 3 seconds or less throwing category that a lot of the great ones are in, I think he could be really effective. I don't know that he's going to get there this season, which is why I'd like to see them extend him. I think they will, because it's the Packers. I think the Vikings are going to part way with Kirk Cousins. I think more than likely the Bears are probably going to dump Justin Fields. Actually, wouldn't be all that surprised if they didn't straight up trade him for Kirk Cousins. And you saw a little swap-a-rooney here in the NFC North. We've got 3 of the 4 NFC North teams. They all suck. I mean, to put it bluntly, I look at the way the Vikings are performing. They're barely a team. The Bears, for their credit, are a better team than the Vikings, in my opinion. At least in terms of team cohesion. I just think they don't have the players that they need to make everything happen. They're a little scattered, and I think that's the play calling. They don't have the right personnel on the field at the right time. That being said, if you've noticed the way Packers have been calling defense, having your guys line up 10 yards deep when the line of scrimmage is the 10-yard line, I have always been critical of our defense. I think Joe Barry needs to go. I thought Dom Capers needed to go. I thought Mike McCarthy needed to go. Long before anybody else was clamoring for it, I was calling for it. And I was told, you're wrong. You got to have faith. I'm like, no. Believe you me, you change the defense some of those years, you do much better. Now, I don't know that there's a great person to take Joe Barry's place. That's I'm not a big what coaches are available guy, so I couldn't tell you who I would get to fill that DC position. I think there's some criticism of Matt LaFleur's offense, too. And I don't think it's without warrant. I think we need some change-up. And it could be that it's the first part of the season. They don't want to tip their whole playbook yet, so there might be some good stuff coming up after the bye week. But I'd love to see the Packers kind of get back to what they do best. Some of those sweeps, the screens, the deep ball attack, the throws over the middle. And what we've really, truly been lacking is a crossing route guy. We haven't had a real great over-the-middle receiver since Randall Cobb was young. And that was the year we went to the Super Bowl, really. We had Jordy Nelson and Randall Cobb who could run those deep-in crossing routes and blow you out of the water. I mean, some of those catches over the middle were just outstanding. I mean, we don't even have a guy like Bill Schrader who could just go out there and just be a big dude and just stand above the safety and catch the ball, So I just want to see a little bit of difference. And I mean, we've got our receiving core isn't bad. They're just young. They're really young. But they're the kind of guys that want to showboat. They want to show off their running skills, their route skills. We need to be a little more loose. I've noticed when we're behind in the fourth and Love just gets let loose on the field, he's taking these shots. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. But when they really work, it's I really hope they're learning from that. Because when he plays loose and just heaves it, he's just as good as Rodgers or Favre. I mean, he can make the deep ball happen. A lot of guys these days can't. And you see it when they throw the ball. They can't get it more than 15, 20 yards down the field. They get inaccurate. The reason they don't do it is because it's picked off like every single time. Look at Kirk Cousins. Not to say that they don't occasionally get one. Everybody does. But I just, we've got, in my opinion, two of the best running backs in football. But you can't use one for the other's function. A.J. Dillon is not an every down back. A.J. Dillon is a third yard or short yardage goal line guy. Aaron Jones is the guy that can run those sweeps. He can run those, fancy style Amon Green type runs that we're kind of famous for in Green Bay. But we're just not seeing it. And I don't know why. Vince Lombardi ran, 6 plays? He would tell you the play before they ran it. He's like, just try and stop us. Go ahead. Here's the play. This is what we're going to do. We're going to run right. The whole line's going to shift. You stop us, and then we'll change how we play. We'll add plays to the playbook. That's the kind of football I want to see. Not the boring 6-play playbook necessarily. But I want to see guys out there, running plays that actually make shit happen. And I know that's easier said than done. But just having that belief and consistency and just fundamental football. Nobody's playing real fundamental football, by the way. There's a lot of fancy tricks coming out of Detroit. There's a lot of teams playing these weird run pass options. I'm telling you, pocket passing and traditional running would take this league by storm. Honestly, because who's going to defend it? They're going to see them and they're not running I formation. Nobody runs I formation anymore. Oh, yes, they do. Because it works.
So saying all those things, it's funny because I was watching some of the Detroit game, and I actually think that the one thing they have is they have guys that are going after it because I think they're feeling it, right? Mm-hmm. There's one play that stands out, and I think Reynolds got the ball. It was off of a pass. I think he came out of the backfield and just kind of swung out towards the sideline. He catches it. He's running down the sideline, and Amon-Ra St. Brown comes out of nowhere, running down the field, takes out one of the, I think it was a safety or something, and then they get the touchdown. Mm-hmm. But because St. Brown was willing to run down the field and block, when Reynolds was already in front of him, I think, and St. Brown came down, made that really key block, they get the touchdown. Those types of players and that type of effort and those type of plays are what propel teams further forward. And in any sport, as long as you have that player. And I think when you're feeling a little bit like Detroit is, I actually thought Tampa Bay was going to have a chance because I felt like Baker Mayfield's been playing really well. And here comes Detroit and just knocks it out of the park. So I really think they're the team to contend with, without a doubt. I think the one thing you still have up there that it's coaching. I mean, Eberflus is just horrendously awful. I mean, bad. But that's something we had talked about a couple weeks ago. Yeah. Can we finally admit that being a head coach is a tough thing? I mean, you and I right now. I mean, what do I know? I'm just some guy in a podcast.
Right, exactly.
Which everyone should subscribe to, but that's a whole nother story. But, being a Monday morning quarterback or Monday evening quarterback, and saying these things, it's a tough thing to do. That's why, like we said a couple weeks ago, those guys deserve all that kind of money. But even I can see that Justin Fields holds the ball the longest out of any QB in the league still. Mm-hmm. Can't look off a safety. Can't go through his reads, automatically will check down, and if I see one more wide receiver screen, and I know we're not the only team doing it, but first of all, we can't do it successfully, and second of all, it's like we'll do it 2 out of 4 plays. We'll do it on first down, do it on third down. Like, what are you doing? It's not working. To your point, if it's not working, you have to switch it up. It's not working. And maybe, again, we're so limited that you can only do a few things, and you just keep going to the well. But The well's dry.
Right. And that's why, like, I always wonder, like, at what point as a coach do you just say, go play backyard football? You're the good guys, they're the bad guys. Throw the ball down the field. Run the ball down the field. You pick. You figure it out. You know, tell your guys where you want them to run. And I know this happens in games because I've seen it. You know, you see it in the preseason when it's like, look, it's the last game of the preseason. Half the guys ain't making the team. They're the 5th, 6th, 7th string. They're just out there having fun. And that's actually exciting. For me, I've always loved, like, 4th week of the preseason when there was a 4th week because, you know, you get your starters for a little bit, and that's exciting because football's back. And then you get the guys that aren't going to make the team, that are just out there playing a game on national television, having the time of their lives. And sometimes it makes for, like, some of the best football you'll see all season in terms of either scoring or big hits or whatever, because it's like, F it, I'm not going to be here next week. I'm going to be on somebody's practice squad. Or maybe I'll be bagging groceries like Kurt Warner. You know? And that's exciting. But I always wonder, like, you know, I look at teams that get way, way behind by halftime. And you're down 3 or 4 scores. You're coming back out of the half. You're getting the ball. And it's just like, all right, we got game plan for this. And it doesn't work. And your adjustments don't work. And suddenly you're staring down the middle of the 3rd quarter. And it's like, look, we're in a hole so deep. We got to just sustain a drive. I don't care how you do it. You call the plays. Like, you know, give the quarterback some credit. You know, Brett Favre was calling plays for a long time on the field. Now, they didn't always work, but, you know, when you had a good one, you're like, Brett, you know, you call it in and say, hey, we got this one. He'd do it, and probably 8 out of 10 times it'd work. Maybe 6 out of 10 times, depending on which season we're talking about. But I just wonder about, you know, like they say the Bears have nothing to lose, play for the pick. Why even bother having a game plan? Why bother, you know, other than like practicing for conditioning reasons, like, you know, come in and script your first drive and your drive after halftime. The rest of it's just like, let the quarterback call the plays. You know, it's like, prove yourself. Show that you can make decisions on the field. And sometimes I wonder about younger quarterbacks or quarterbacks who never get this opportunity, because I think about Kirk Cousins. He's in the division. I feel like he's the kind of quarterback that runs what's called. You know, and I think you saw this in the Giants game yesterday, where they ran run-pass option, and he took the option to run the ball and lost the game.
Right.
Like, you know, I mean, that's a quarterback that does what he's told, you know, and doesn't have that critical thinking piece that's so essential to winning a game. You know, and that's where I feel like your older school quarterbacks, Ben Roethlisberger might have been the last, maybe Aaron Rodgers, go out there and just play the game you know. You know the coverages. You know when the blitz is coming. You know when you're going to have some guys, you know, open over the middle or open at the boundary. Tell them who you're going to throw to, you know. Just like give your guy a nod. Give him a wink, you know. Give him the hand signal. All those guys got something, you know. Or call a completely fake audible like Aaron Rodgers did against, was it New Orleans? And he's like, New York Bozo! Nothing happens, and everybody sort of stands up at the line. He hikes the ball, and he just tosses it to Randall Cobb for a touchdown. And everybody's like, well, we thought this was a spike. You know, it was great. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that, you know, I feel like the NFL needs more of it, you know, I don't know. It's almost like you're watching lackluster quarterbacks who care more about what they're wearing to the game than what they're doing in the game.
You know, I'm just back to the whole, and my buddies and I were talking about it this past weekend through text. I'm a big reflection guy, and I talk to my athletes about this a lot, right?
Well, when the sun is out, I'm sure the reflection is awful.
That's right.
Hey!
If one or two people are saying something, when everyone's saying it and they're saying it over a long period of time, at what point do you look in the mirror and ask you if it's you? But you really should be doing that every day anyway. When you get up, you should be looking in the mirror. If you look in the mirror and you feel good about yourself, because only you truly know, right? Only you know the truth. And this is an organization that still relies on 85. And At what point do you look in the mirror and say, I'm doing a disservice to an entire city? Because that's what's happening. Now, maybe it's easier for them to say, who cares? We're worth a couple billion probably if we sold the team. But then is some of it a pride thing because they're the McCaskies? At some point, do they look in the mirror and say, we are messing this whole thing up? We act like we know what we're doing. We don't. We can't bring the right people in. The season's over with, which I think part of it, too, is letting Bagent play. I think I'm saying this right. I'm so confused on his name. I almost think they might want this backup to do well in order to be like, yeah, we're flushing Fields down the toilet. We're going to take Caleb Williams with the first pick, which, by the way, USC got crushed by Notre Dame last weekend, made Caleb Williams look human. That's a whole nother question. Do you let one game determine what you're going to do with this guy? Because now they're already talking about not drafting him, taking Marvin Harrison Jr., trading the pick. I mean, what are you doing? And there's even some talk of Caleb Williams was even saying, I might come back, depending on who takes me, Eli Manning, I might go back to school for my final year because I'll just live off of NIL deals. So all that stuff comes into play. And what are you going to do? And I'll say one more thing. I'll probably say a lot more things, but it's obviously a system thing. Because, again, I watched David Montgomery, until he got hurt yesterday, was just tearing up the Bucs. Tearing them up. It's a system. He's in the right system. Now, I do think there are times that certain people are really made for a system, right? Like if they were somewhere else, they probably wouldn't be successful. Tom Brady, back to your Kurt Warner story, right? So I do think that has something to do with it. But I do think a lot of the times it's the system that you have in place. Brock Purdy is doing so well right now. Well, besides him having all-stars all around him, he's in a great system for him.
Yeah.
He just is. And he's a smart guy. I was reading an article that said he scored the second highest. There's some kind of it's not the Wonderlic, it's a different one. He scored the second highest. I think it was only behind Peyton Manning. This test that they give him about reading situations. It's not Wonderlic, it's something else. But he's got the ability to read those situations and to make a quick decision. I mean, again, it's not an easy position. It's not an easy sport. But someone did their research in San Francisco. Did they get lucky? Probably. But they still went after the kid and it took a chance, and here he is. I mean, I know they lost last week, but
he's still maybe championship bound. I mean, that's
love him. Like, yeah. I love watching that guy play.
Yeah, it's like watching Steve Young or Tony Montana Tony Montana,
I thought you were going to say it as well.
Joe Montana. I said Joe Montana. Joe Montana play like those. They're exciting quarterbacks to watch, and it's absolutely their acumen on the field. Like they just know the game. They love the game, and that's where like Aaron Rodgers could be fun to watch, but he was almost snooty about it. Like the passion he had for the game didn't come off as personably. When you watch Brett Favre play the game, I still watch highlights. I just get chills, man. He'd throw a pass and it'd be like some crazy triple coverage, and he'd thread the needle in there. Not even to like win the game or score a touchdown. It'd just be like a big first down when they really needed it. He'd be jumping up and down. He'd be slapping guys on the ass. It was fun for him. Like, even if they lost the game, he was still having a great time. Even if Warren Sapp, like, pushed him into the dirt, 10 times in a game, he'd be like, well, I got back up, didn't I? Guess you don't hit that hard. Right. I mean, it's the exuberance of play, which when you're winning, it's easy to have that. When you're losing, and you can still have those moments, the moments where you're up on the line cheering your teammates on, even though you're not on the field, I don't see enough of that right now. Green Bay's had a little bit more of it this year. Certainly the Bears. But watching their sidelines is just depressing.
They can't even hike the ball. They had to take Cody Whitehair out. He couldn't snap the ball to Fields, and he couldn't snap it to Bagnett. So, like,
Yeah.
they had to take him out.
I
What does that tell you?
How do you not have a good center? I feel like centers are a dime a dozen. Like now a really great center, like Jeff Saturday or something. Yeah, of course they're not easy to find, but a center that can just perform the fundamental duties of a center. There's a lot of college teams out there. There's got to be some rookie center sitting on a practice squad or on his couch, eating Cheetos. Like, hey, we need a center in Chicago. We'll pay a league rookie minimum. All right. Like, come on, there's got to be somebody out there. And I just don't. But I could say the same thing about tackles and guards for the Packers. Like, we've needed to shore up our line. Lyle Collins is just out there. League minimum for a veteran would not be something we couldn't do, and the guy's not playing. Probably wants to play. Is he really going to hold out for more money at this point in the season? I'm guessing probably not. Sign him for a short-term deal. If he does really well, maybe you consider a contract. Maybe not. I don't know. It's one of those things that, like, it is. It's a scheme thing. It's a system thing. And you have to wonder, too, with general management, how much is there a clash between the coaching staff and the GM? I've always been a proponent of your coach should be your GM. So only they really know the system they're building. And only they really know how we should be scouting, what we need to be looking for, what nuance do you see in these people that can make an impact in whatever scheme you're building. And I'm not dissatisfied with our style of defense in Green Bay, but I don't know that I would continue running this defensive coordinator Joe Barry's packages. They're a bit boom and bust for me. Some games we look great. When we're up by a score or two for most of the game, our defense plays fantastic. If we're down 70% of the games, our defense plays pretty good. 30%, it's like they just get tired, and by the third quarter, it's over.
It's mental.
And you can't blame them, right?
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. That's an attitude thing. I still think you've got one of the better head coaches in the league. You might need a change here or there, but again, it's kind of like us. Is that something you do right now? Like, does he make the change? Probably not, right? Like, you got to finish out the season with who you have in those spots, which is obviously what's happening here.
Yeah.
But we've been doing a lot of justifiable complaining. What do you want to see before we match up again on Thanksgiving? Or how about this? What would you like to see in the next 2 games? Give me 2 things that you want to see in the next 2 or 3 games.
I think we need a big win, and we can get that against.
You mean
the
like
Broncos.
by a wide margin, or
By
do you
a
mean
wide
like
margin?
Okay.
We need a wide margin win. Something to. It's kind of like when you bounce back against a high school team, as a college team. You have that scrimmage game where you just blow up some 17-year-olds. I think we have a real big opportunity to get a big win on the road. And we played well on the road this year. I'd like to see that. I'd like to see us bounce back defensively against the Vikings. I want us to win that game, for sure. But I think the Vikings are playing sloppy enough football that our defense could probably push us to that win if they needed to. And I think, honestly, just for their mental sake, I think the defense needs a big performance. They don't have to be perfect against the Broncos. Like we'll probably get a takeaway, maybe 2. We're going to get a couple of sacks on Russell Wilson. We'll get some stops where we need them, but it's going to be an average defensive game. It's not going to be a top-tier defensive game. I think we could show a top-tier defensive game against the Vikings. I think we could really make some things happen. Them not having Justin Jefferson is going to help us a lot, but they still have Jordan Addison. They still have some good players. And like it or not, Kirk Cousins is good on paper. And it's because they call a lot of high percentage stuff. And I think you have your best game defensively when you break up those high percentage throws, and those high percentage runs. When you stop the run and you interrupt those short yardage or behind the line passes, which our defense is not bad at doing, you have a real chance at bouncing back. And those are the two things I think are very doable, and I need to see both of them to really feel inspired by this team again, because they just have not been playing inspired football. They've been playing good football, but not good enough. I don't feel like they've got the energy they need.
I would like to see consistency on the offensive line for us. Sometimes we're strong enough, other times we're just getting steamrolled. And, it's interesting because I would like to see us continue to use, Khalil Herbert and Rashawn Johnson consistently as part of that. And I'm looking at some stats here just real quick. And I'm going to use the Lions as my basis. You've got Herbert averaging 5.3 a carry. And then, of course, Fields is at 5.0, and then Johnson's at 4.9. So we'll take Fields out of the equation. Montgomery's averaging 4.1, and their backup is averaging 4.6 yards a carry. So something is going right in our running game. We obviously can't pass protect to save our lives, so I guess I would like to see a little bit of stability there, and I would like to see Baggett throw some. The one thing I do like about him, he gets rid of the ball. He's got a really great quick release. Let's run some slants. Let's run some, and I'm going really old, let's run something where we can just kind of sit in the zone and let him zip a couple in there. Some timing plays like that. You can keep a few of those short. Maybe look to throw a bomb or two downfield because the kid's got the arm for it. But that's going to we need the consistency of our offensive line. And then give this quarterback a chance to succeed by just running some nice quick routes that he can just fling the ball and get rid of it quickly. I think if you mix that in with the running game, you should be able to have some kind of success. I'm not saying a win, but at least some offensive consistency. And then it takes pressure off of your defense too, which I know we're struggling there. We can't get a pass rush to save our lives. But just the quarterback center exchange, if we could just get that down for a week, maybe that will help everything else too. But I think a couple of those things, to me that's controllable, right? Mm-hmm. Having the consistency, run the ball, throw some quick, have some quick throwing plays. That's something you can control. Not throwing a wide receiver screen every other play. I mean, again, I know I'm sitting in my basement trying to come up with ideas, but I feel like I'm more creative than what I've seen. If I was talking about the 49ers right now, which maybe we need to have APC on at some point with that. If I'm talking about the 49ers, I'm obviously, wouldn't be able to give any suggestions there. But this is where we're at here in Chicago.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think APC needs to come on the show. I mean, I know he's on every other show, but
right.
I'd love to hear what the Niners' perspective is, because they are playing inspired football. That is a team. I think you can make the argument that maybe Philadelphia is better from a team perspective, but I think you'd be hard pressed. That could be your NFC Championship matchup. Is Philadelphia?
It'd be
49ers. Be a hell of a game.
Yeah, or even Detroit and the Niners, I think, would be a fun game to watch.
Yeah. I think that the one thing I want to caution people about Detroit is they are still Detroit. And I've seen flashes of it in every single game they've played where they had every opportunity to lose that game, and probably would have if the team they were playing was just a little bit better. And that's the thing when I talk about the back half of the season, their schedule toughens up a little bit. A lot of these teams that haven't been doing so well will turn it around. Green Bay being one of them, Chicago possibly being another. There's a chance even the Vikings could turn it around and be a significant challenge for some of these other NFC teams, the Lions included. We play the Lions on Thanksgiving Day. That's their Super Bowl, is Thanksgiving Day. But if I'm not mistaken, we play them at home in Detroit at 11:30 on Thanksgiving. If I know anything about playing in Detroit on Thanksgiving, it's a very tough game.
It is.
But Detroit, by that time in the season, might have some injuries happen. Might have, some burnout and be ready for that gut punch moment, which a lot of championship teams or playoff-bound teams have. They get that moment where it's like they've been riding high, they've been doing really well, and they're getting a little bit too confident. And then a team that probably shouldn't beat them will come in and beat them, and usually beat them bad. I've seen Green Bay do it year after year after the bye week. And that's why I'm a little worried about this Broncos game, because we typically lose that first game after the bye week. Although I think this time around we've lost 2 in a row. I don't think we're going to drop it against the Broncos. We might lose to the Vikings, and I could almost accept that because, it's a rivalry game. Those are tough games. We're not playing great football. It's going to take more offense than we've been showing to beat the Vikings. And I'm saying that as a true Green Bay fan. But I think our defense is probably going to help us out there, and we can probably eke out a win. It may be another one-score game for Minnesota. But, it's something where I think, like, the back half of the season, what we're going to see in a difference between Game 1 and Game 17, Packers-Bears, I really, truly think is going to be defined by the next 8 or so weeks and what we see with changes. I don't think the Bears are going to fire Eberflus unless you guys lose the next, 8 games. I could see if you guys lose and lose badly in a few of them, especially some of the division or the big marquee matchups, I could see them canning him during the season. I don't think it's going to happen, but I could see it.
Beating Washington is I think that's what kept him around. Mm-hmm. But why? What, I mean, there's zero justification for that.
Right.
I mean, that kind of logic is the kind of stuff that just drives me crazy. I mean, if he's bad, get rid of him.
It cools the coals, right? For a little bit of time.
Well, because again,
you string together 4 losses.
If you would have heard the sports talk radio down here and some Bears fans talking, they're like, "Oh, we're back on track." It's like, what do you got? No, we're not. I mean, it's very evident. Well, right. Yeah. That's the thing. So, so what are you thinking your score is going to be this week?
Well, we're at Denver. It's a mid-game. To me, it seems like the mid-games are your higher-scoring games for whatever reason this year. I could really see us dropping 42 points on Denver.
Ooh.
I could see a 42-21 or 42-17. I think Denver's going to have a really bad game. I think they're going to get absolutely embarrassed at home. And to some extent, I think it's because both sides of the ball have a big chip on their shoulder after the last 2 weeks in a row, especially losing at home against the Lions, losing a very winnable game against the Raiders. They're hungry, and they've had a lot of time to think about it between, the 9th and, the 22nd. That's a good, basically 2 full weeks right there where they're stewing, they're watching film, they're eating this up, they're looking at how Russell Wilson played, they're looking at how their guys are running routes in Denver, and it is Mile High. It's not an easy place to win, so I could be very wrong about that, but I'm thinking it's going to be a big one. I think we're going to dump some points.
By the way, I think Denver's a team that's going to totally knock it all down and start rebuilding next season. I'm going to go 17-13 Raiders. I just even if Jimmy G isn't there for that game, I just I don't see us winning. I don't even. I mean, looking at the Bears' schedule, to your point, Vegas, the Chargers, New Orleans, Carolina might be a chance for us. Maybe. That's it. Maybe Atlanta. Not even Atlanta. No, like it's not happening. So I think we lose this weekend. That's my opinion, and I do think the Packers beat the Broncos without a doubt.
I wish I could say without a doubt, but I was thinking that against the Raiders, and I was thinking that actually, frankly, against the Lions. I thought we would beat them at home. I thought we'd lose on the road on Thanksgiving, but another sweep by the Lions this year, boy, that would sting. I don't think we want that, and I don't think the players want that. I actually think the Bears are going to beat the Raiders.
Wow.
And I don't think it's going to be for any of the reasons anybody would think. I think it's going to be a weird special teams fluke. I think they're going to get a run back for a touchdown. I think that's going to end up winning the game for them. I think it's going to be a bad punt at the end of the game, a short shank, or maybe just bad coverage late in the fourth. And I don't think Vegas is going to come back for it. I think for once in the life of the Bears this year, I think they're going to somehow hold up on defense late in the game, and it's probably not going to be a lot of points, 2-3 points to win the game, but I think somehow special teams is going to be their saving grace. I do think it'll be like a 17-13 game, probably a real snoozer. Might want to make a sandwich for part of that game, especially the first half. I think the first half is going to be brutal. I think the Raiders are going to get up quick. But I think the Bears are going to have a good third quarter, and I think they're going to close. But I agree. I think the schedule toughens up a lot for Chicago. Carolina's the one game where I feel like it's pretty well in hand. Even if they play the way they've been playing against them, I think that's... I don't want to say it's a guaranteed win, but it's pretty close to it.
Yeah. We'll see. We'll see.
Well, with that, this is our fourth episode, and I would be remiss if I didn't bring up some Brett Favre stories. And I think when it comes
we should end every
the
podcast
Packers-Bears rivalry,
with an Urza Brett Favre story, where we all gather around with our little Packer hats and we just listen. Tell us a Favre
roasting
story.
some marshmallows around the fire. So, in the spirit of Packers-Bears rivalry, I think you could talk a lot about how Aaron Rodgers owned the Bears, and I like that. Don't get me wrong. I eat it up. It was like, yeah. But I think the Packers-Bears, when it was under Favre, was way more entertaining because it's more competitive. And let's be honest. I mean, some of those rivalries back in the day, they just, like, I remember Minnesota just had our number, with Dante Culpepper, and a few of those years, just we could not beat them in the Dome. I remember going to Soldier Field, well, not me personally, but like the team going to Soldier Field thinking, oh, we got this, and the Bears just shellacking us.
That's when we had a defense.
Until Cutler came around, and it was like, yeah, I mean, those were the days. But I will never forget. Just, this is such a great game, and I wish I have it on DVD. I know I do. But it was a game, and Cutler, he was a veteran, and it was one of Favre's last few years. And I don't even think the Packers were doing particularly well that year, but it was a December game, and everybody loves, cold games between Chicago and Green Bay, and we went to Chicago, and they were ripping us all week down there, because we were on, I think, maybe a losing streak. Maybe we just lost to, like, New Orleans and Carolina, maybe Tampa, and... we were looking bad, but we're the Packers. We always go to the playoffs kind of thing. And the Bears it was like that game where, like, if the Bears beat us, they were going to take the division for the year. And they were all pumped about it. And I remember everybody makes fun of Jay Cutler for, like, not giving a crap about the game. And they had this hype video they played on NBC before the game. And the Bears were talking trash. And I remember Jay Cutler just being like... Yeah, you think you can come into our house and win? And just deadpan, like, no emotion. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I am 100% sure we're going to knock you guys on your ass. And to the credit of the Bears, their defense held us to a quick 3-and-out to start the game. You know, and that's why I remember saying it. We should always defer to the second half against the Bears at Soldier Field. Always defer to the second half every single time. We didn't in that game. I'm like, oh, I hope we didn't just lose this game. And the Bears came out and like the first pass, was it like Allen Robinson or one of those guys? It was I don't remember the receiver, but it was just a deep bomb. Cutler threw it like 76 yards and got a touchdown. And it was like 4 minutes into the first quarter. And I just remember the collective groans of everybody who was watching the game. I was like, here we go again. And not 5 minutes later, they're up 14-0. And then we get a field goal. And then they get the ball back and they get a field goal. It's like 17-3 at the start of the second quarter. And then, was it Grady Jackson maybe? Just levels Cutler to start the second quarter. He's like dropping back and they got a guy just wide open. We busted that coverage so bad. And Cutler's just about to launch it. And Grady Jackson just, bam, just knocks him down. And you see Cutler just do one of these. And he lays there for a second. And he kind of does, like you could tell, he just got hit. And I never looked back. Because the next play, he throws that bomb pass on the route they thought they had. And Atari Bigby steps in front of the ball and takes it back like 45 yards. And we picked Jay Cutler off, I want to say 5 times in that game. And I think we ended up running up the score like 52 to like 30 or something, 52 to 24. And I think we ended up like pulling out the division that year and making it to the playoffs. I want to say we lost like the Seahawks in the first round or something. But that was a Brett Favre game where he was playing like crap that first quarter. Like I think he threw a pick. I think he gambled on a few throws that just didn't work. And then we got that big hit, the interception, and it was like he could do no wrong. The rest of the game just double, triple coverage, touchdown. And it's just like, this is the game everybody wants to see out of Brett Favre. And quite frankly, as much as Aaron Rodgers owned the Bears, he never had those games that were that exciting. We had big wins, but I don't think we ever had games where it's like, oh, you're on this emotional ride with Brett Favre. Is he going to give the game away, or is he going to throw a bunch of spectacular-looking touchdowns, and we're all going to go home happy and good and drunk? So, that being said, that's my episode 4 Brett Favre story.
Cutler's.
I'm sure you've got some good Rex Grossman stories.
I mean, Cutler's favorite people to throw to is the Packers defense. So that was very well established over the years.
Oh, yeah. I wish there was a supercut. Now, all of our millions
and millions
of fans on YouTube, if anybody out there has a supercut of every Jay Cutler interception thrown to Packers players, drop it in the comments below, because I would love to watch that. And definitely, if you're not already a subscriber, hit that subscribe button and drop us a comment. What's your favorite Brett Favre memory to celebrate our 4th episode? And what's your favorite, I don't know, what's Jason Hansen? Was he the number 4 kicker for Detroit for all those years?
Yeah.
I think he briefly had the longest field goal record, too, 63 yards.
There's a 9-minute YouTube video of Cutler throwing to Packer defenders. It's 9 minutes, everybody. 9.
This is why.
Not
Chicago's
9 seconds.
Had, 30-some coaches, 30-some quarterbacks in the last
Not
50
90
years.
seconds. Not 4 minutes. It's 9 minutes. I mean, Bears. That's all I can say.
See, no, Bears fans out there are probably going, what about Ditka?
Well, because that's our counter to everything. 85 Bears, greatest defense ever. Hey, my friend, they could stop anyone nowadays as well. And then Coach Ditka, that's our thing. That's not good enough. It's not good enough.
Not almost 40 years later, it's not good enough. And don't get me wrong, like I remember, well, I wasn't around for those games, but I remember growing up hearing all about them 85 Bears and how they just whooped our butt for 30-some years and we were nobodies. And we won Super Bowl 31 and never looked back, so... Bears fans, don't lose the faith. There's always Polish sausage and Lou
Yeah.
Malnati's if you need something
There
to
you
cry
go.
into.
That's right.
And Packers fans, keep your cheese nice and crispy in this cold weather. It's getting cooler every day. We're moving closer and closer to those frozen tundra days. Keep up that faith. We do get better in December, and we still have a very real chance to win this division. We're not that far behind Detroit, and Detroit's due for a couple of gut check games. So, and hey, you never know. Football is unpredictable come November and December. The Bears probably won't turn it around.
Yeah, I was going to say. You can predict what's going to happen there, my friend.
But hey, good draft pick, right? So, thank you all for listening. If you have not subscribed to Pending Rebrand, highly recommend it. We drop several shows a week, and on top of that, we have our world famous shorts starring Hank Hill and animals, babies, toys, you name it. It's happening. It's out there. It's all the time. It is, as George Hallis would say, as Vince Lombardi would say, the podcast you should subscribe to and listen to. Have a great night. Uh-oh, where's the countdown? Uh-oh, is it recording already?
Yeah, it is.
Oh, it's recording. I'm going to give it some dead air and I'll just cut around this. This is going to make a great blooper, though.
It is.